This episode starts to really paint the picture of Ember's utility. We'll see how easy it is to create the popular master detail user interface, and how important to Ember is the interface of the web, the URL. Let's first get our master view rendered. We'll continue with our users from the last episode. I'm just going to paste some code in here because it's nothing new. It's things that we've seen already. So nothing fancy here, just a plain old template with an each block, and we're just going to display the first name of each one of our users. And now I will copy and paste in our app to kind of bring it to life. So the goal here is to have these be links, and when clicked, they display a detail view of each user. I often say that the best place to start with UI is the UI itself, the template. So let's create our user template. Again, I'm just going to copy and paste in here for the sake of time. Nothing fancy. We've got this user template. Show their first, last name, avatar, and then some metadata, which all we have is first and last name. As a side note, production Ember applications have their templates in separate files in the project that then get pre-compiled into JavaScript functions. You don't really use this script tag stuff in production. It's great for demos and sharing code and getting help. In another episode, I'll talk about pre-compiling templates and how to tell Ember where to find your templates instead of just looking for a template with an ID. Okay, so we've got this user template, but we haven't wired anything up to render it. We need to create a new route and also add what's called an outlet to our master template. Let's add the outlet now. Outlets are amazing little bits of your template that can render any arbitrary content. And then Ember's got some conventions around what to render into them based on the route you map. So let's create our route and see all this come to life. I'm just going to type it all out, talk a little bit, see it work first, and then talk a little bit more about why it works. So every application has a router. And this method map, we can tell the application what all of our routes are. So we're going to tell it, hey, we've got this resource named user, and we want the path for this resource to be, I've got all these running back here slowing down my browser. Okay, so users and then user ID. And then let's create a user route. And then tell the template what data to display. And finally, we have to come to our template and turn these usernames into links. There's a really handy helper here called linkTo. And this should work now. Okay, so first let's talk about app.router.map. We're telling the router that we've got a user resource, and we'd like, when users / and then some ID is visited, for Ember to automatically wire up all of our stuff called user, like a user route and the user template. So these are all conventions that Ember is going to go and look these things up. If we had defined a user controller and a user view, Ember would use those as well. We didn't define them, so Ember just creates them for us. Now note this dynamic segment here in the URL. You probably already figured it out that this gets passed in to the parameters here, and then since our users are just hard-coded into this array, and actually these are not that important, but for the sake of consistency, we can just access that user by the ID on our array, just by its index. So kind of silly. If you're using Ember data, you'd probably do something like app.user.find params.userid. And since there are conventions, if we were using Ember data, we wouldn't even need any of this stuff because it would just find it for us, because this is so common. That's the convention. But we aren't using Ember data. We're just accessing users off of an array. Let's pop this out and watch the URL. So you can see the IDs get put up here into the URL. Our back button works. And if we wanted to, we could share this URL with somebody. And it'll take us straight to Tom because of this ID. We can even manipulate it ourselves and go there. It's actually harder to write your app in a way to not get this very important and often neglected functionality. When building Ember applications, I always map a route first in here and then create a template before doing anything else. The URLs that your app responds to are your first thought in Ember, not an afterthought.